how a part-time real estate investor uses creative financing to earn passive income. Stay tuned. Welcome to today's edition of NoteSchool TV, where every week we bring you the best note content you can find anywhere. When do we do it? 11:05 Central Time every Wednesday. And by the way, today is no different. We have an amazing guest, as we always do. So, a couple of things I want you to do for me. Number one, like what you see. Guys, just hit that like button. Secondly, if you have not already subscribed to NoteSchool TV, make sure and subscribe to NoteSchool TV. And finally, this is a biggie, right? Hit that bell notification. Yes, go ahead and do it right now. Hit that bell notification so that you will be notified every week a few minutes before we go live. When? Every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. Also, please keep those comments and all of the questions coming. Eddie and I love hearing from you guys. Our guests love hearing from you guys as well. So please continue with the comments. It gives us and makes us better presenters as we go do and produce the show every week. Also, if you would like more information about what we do at NoteSchool, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And now, what we do every week at this time is, well, let's go to the news. All right, well, since Monday was Halloween, I stumbled across this, and this is the U.S. cities that have the most zombie properties. Right now in the U.S., and a zombie property is classified as a property that, well, is vacant and that is in some stage of foreclosure. So right now, there's about 1.3 million zombie properties. And the city with the largest amount, well, 12.7% in Wichita, Kansas, right? 12.7% of the houses in Wichita are zombie houses and in some process of foreclosure, followed by Peoria, Illinois, Syracuse, New York, Toledo, Ohio, and then Cleveland, Ohio. So 1.3 million zombie properties. And then secondly, as reported by Bloomberg, U.S. mortgage rates, well, soar past 7% for the first time in 2 decades. And guys, you can see, and actually it's sitting closer to 7.2, 7.3. And just remember, folks, this is the rate for the most qualified borrowers, right? And we're talking about people that have credit scores north of 730, 740, 20% to put down, and then their debt to income ratio is in line. Everybody else pays more. And just to kind of give you a little taste of what that looks like. So back in January, rates were 3.22. Your average 30-year fixed rate payment was $1,300 a month. Today, at just using the 7.8 for the perfect borrowers, it is a little over $2,000 a month, like $2,012 a month, making the payment $715 more per month than it was in January. So more to come on affordability. And then finally, this afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Fed Chair Jerome Powell will likely announce another 75 basis point increase in the Fed funds rate. So keep an eye out for that. Again, 2 o'clock Eastern this afternoon. And folks, that is the news for this week. And now I would like to bring on our Chief Visionary Officer, my friend, my mentor, all-around good guy, Mr. Eddie Speed. All right, well, welcome, Eddie. How did you like my reference to Halloween with the zombie houses, man?
Zombie houses really was an amazing number, because I would have been shocked. And I know a lot of cities that are kind of known to have a lot of zombie houses. Certainly not surprising. Toledo and Cleveland are in that box.
Right.
But to see number one city is being Wichita, Kansas is pretty amazing. So
it is.
Joe, the bigger news today, though, was about rates.
Yeah.
And the affordability of rates. And as you said, this is the rate that they're quoting is only for the best of people. That's not the average person getting a mortgage. That's the best of people getting a mortgage. It certainly doesn't represent 35% of the people that can get a mortgage. That number represents even a lower number than that. And everybody else, as you said, is paying more.
That's right.
Today, we're gonna introduce you guys to a gentleman that works part-time in the business, as Joe said. So he has a full-time job. He's a part-time real estate investor, and he's utilizing creative financing to make an opportunity out of the mortgage rates.
Right.
Because of high rates, he has developed an opportunity out of this that, well, his competition hadn't figured out.
That's right.
We're going to talk about that. So you guys help me welcome Mr. Jim Tiernan. Good morning.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're good. How are you, Jim?
Good. Happy
post-Halloween.
Great. Yeah, happy post-Halloween, right? We survived.
I was gonna say the Wichita State are the shocker, so that's probably why they're number one, right?
It is really, just all the way around. That's a surprising thing. There must be something going on up there that I'm unaware of, because that's 12% of the houses in the city.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a lot.
Big number.
Jim,
well, guys, I'm going to jump off and let you guys kind of talk a little bit, and then I'll see you towards the end of the show.
Okay, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Jim, you're in the Denver area.
Yep, I am in Denver. I have a couple rentals here and a couple back in Chicago where I grew up. So,
okay,
kind of looking both places.
So, let's go down a little bit of the journey. You joined NoteSchool, and what led you to an interest in getting involved in that?
Well, I was actually taking one of Jeff Watson's online classes about buying project or property subject to, which is being, you're taking over somebody's loan.
Yeah.
And then this was, I think, a 7-week class. And the last 2 weeks were about how do you exit out of these properties. And so we had you and Joe on talking about doing wraps.
That's
and
it.
I thought, well, that's a pretty good strategy where you can get some cash flow and not really be a landlord.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot of teaching with Jeff. He is a great guy. Jeff is actually my main attorney. And so a lot of the creative stuff that we structured, I've used Jeff to help us with that. And so it's glad that we got connected, and I'm glad that you came on. So, I guess really before you joined NoteSchool, where were you going and why were you looking for something different?
Well, I think before I joined, I was mostly like a lot of landlords, just, I'm going to put 25% down and go to the bank for money. And, in Denver here, the median house is over 600,000. So if you're putting 25% down at a crack, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, when I saw you guys on the videos, I thought this is an easier way to do this. So.
Yeah. And as you well know, Denver is gotten bruised up pretty seriously in the last few months.
Yep. It's definitely sliding sideways to down at the moment.
Yeah. I know some very big operators in the Denver market that do it full time for a living, and they're telling me about it, right? I'm hearing about it for sure.
Right.
So Jim, one thing that I think is really interesting, and I think a lot of our audience is interested in, is how do you do this? We're going to talk about specifically implementing how you buy houses, but how do you view this? Like, you were a landlord, you're a full-time guy, you're an engineer, you work for an aerospace engineering firm. So you've got a real job. And so you got to do this part-time, and you got to do something that like fits a lifestyle along with it, right? How do you work all that?
Well, it's definitely a balancing act. I've worked part-time for Lockheed for a long time, and I've liked real estate for a long time. So I had rentals, but they can be a pain at times for sure. I had one rental that, cash flow is great, but all of a sudden I needed a new well, and that was a year and a half of cash flow gone. So I'd rather be the bank and just, let people work on their own properties.
Yeah, you hear me talk about these burnout landlords, and they're all like you, right? They've got a spreadsheet, some either they built it or they got it some download from somebody or something, and the spreadsheet says here's how much you're supposed to make, and then you have a checking account and it says how much you really are making.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes they aren't talking to each other, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
So you transitioned and you said, I would rather be a note architect than just a regular landlord. And so let's talk about that transition and how you did that. I can understand buying, at 25% down, it's hard to buy a lot of rentals in Denver, right?
Yeah, really hard. Yep.
And so when you transition, what did that look like?
Well, I still look in Denver, but the properties that I have in Illinois, I actually sold one on a note just over the summer. And my cash flow went from, $400 a month to about $750. And I no longer have to manage it or deal with the tenants or anything. So I definitely want to steer myself towards doing those wraps.
Okay. I want to go back and ask that again, because I want to make sure our audience caught this. You had a rental that was cash flowing at less than $450 a month, and you sold it and owner financed it. And now how much are you making?
About $755, I think, a month.
Wow. You mean you made that much more money because you turned a rental into becoming an owner finance note, and you're now carrying the paper on the property.
Right. And so my new owners, he's worried about the taxes and insurance and maintenance, and I'm not.
And because you use that strategy, you actually had an incredible tax benefit also, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Because you essentially got to sidestep having to pay capital gains.
Right. Yeah. I can spread that out over time. Yeah.
And then if you don't make so much in capital gains every year, then you don't hit the threshold where capital gains becomes taxable.
Correct. Yep.
So installment sales carrying the paper over time stretched out your capital gain. And by stretching it out, it's holding you below a number every year where capital gains taxing starts.
Yeah. I mean, if I had the choice between paying the government now or later, I'm going to pay them later.
And I'm guessing, and I'm not giving you tax advice, but I think your accountant's going to say you're not going to pay them later.
Yeah, well, that'd be fine too.
Because if you only get taxed after the 40,400 is my understanding.
Yeah.
So if you don't hit that number in capital gains in any given year, boom.
Yeah.
That
works for me.
That's a tax strategy offer, we call it, right?
Right. Yep.
So one of the things, Jim, that I guess people always are curious about is when you join some kind of a membership program, or you get inside an ecosystem of a training company like ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're inside that system. What were you looking for, and what were you looking to get away from?
Well, some of the other trainings that I've had, once that weekend is over, or, you go through the course, there's really no follow-up. And so you get back into the daily grind of doing your business, and, you never use it. Whereas NoteSchool, you have multiple calls a week, and you can bring on ideas and properties that you're looking at, and how can I buy this and structure the financing and make it work. So the constant follow-up definitely helps.
Yeah, it goes from concept to like putting your deal up there and saying, okay, how do I do it? Right. And we've done that a few times with you, right?
Yeah. And actually the one I'm working on now, I brought it and presented it and said, here's how I'm thinking about financing it. And we tweaked it. And so that's what we're going with, a little step rate that you worked on.
Yeah, that step rate where you start out, and the seller is carrying financing for you, right?
Right.
And you start out with either no interest or very low interest, and then the interest goes up over time. that is a very effective tool in getting you an effective interest rate that is lower than it appears.
Right.
If people feel like they're earning more interest than they're earning, I've laughed and said forever, sellers will negotiate with you and banter with you about the rate. Yet if you hand them a calculator, they couldn't figure the payment.
Right. Yeah, they see that rate, the high rate at the very end of the loan, but I mean that loan might be paid off by then, so you might end up paying that anyway.
We're going to do a commercial here for Note Expo that will be this week, right at the end of this week. And one of the presentations I'm going to do at Note Expo is I'm going to explain about how to structure these step rate loans and how it so effectively makes the real rate you're paying, the effective rate, much lower than it appears. Usually about half of the rate that the people really feel like you're paying is only what you're really paying. It's kind of a math trick, but it sure is a good one. So
right.
Let's watch this commercial for Note Expo. We'll come back and talk about your specific deal.
Okay.
We are at Note Expo.
It's amazing.
Phenomenal.
Just fantastic.
It's like recharging my batteries. I get enthused again. I meet a lot of other people in the business. I get a lot of ideas.
Connections. I've made so many friends over the years of high-level investors, high-level business people.
You get out here and see people who are doing things on a level you're not there yet. So that inspires me.
It's been a great event. Lots of good people, lots of opportunities to network, lots of education, and the vendors are great.
Meeting all the people here from all over the country, wanting to know about notes.
And then the networking is just crazy.
All these people has just been stunning.
It's like coming home to a family. And there's a lot of smart people here, and everybody's welcome in. It's always good seeing familiar faces.
I'm sure it's going to empower me and lead to much better growth.
And there really is no other place you can go to figure out what's going on, like in the guts of the industry.
We're
already registered.
So we have put our money down.
Yes, sir. Note Expo. It will actually start this Friday, and so we're really excited. Jim, as I mentioned to you, one of the things that I've learned about helping real estate investors, I was thinking the other day, somebody's asking me a question, like, I've bought 50,000 deals, and I've looked at God knows how many, but I bought 50,000 of the deals. Probably over 30,000 of those deals are where I help people with a formula of how to make seller financing, right? Mm-hmm. Or I basically help them architect how they did it, and then they later wanted to do business with me. So it turned out to be a pretty good thing. You're doing that where you're going to be the borrower, you're going to owe the money, and you are basically dictating the terms to the person selling the property, right? So tell us about this deal. Tell us kind of the profile of this seller and what their situation was. Why would they want to be your bank?
Okay, yeah. Well, I sent some postcards back to Chicago, kind of near where I lived, to landlords that have owned for 10 years. And this guy Jerry called me, and he's, we had probably an hour conversation. And he's just kind of burned out. He's like, I've owned this for a while. I'm done. My tenant's kind of a pain. And originally I was going towards the tax strategy that we've talked about, where he can spread out his capital gains over time. And he wasn't really interested in that. He just wants to be done with it. Yeah. So we kind of worked on, well, how can we buy this? So this property is probably worth 140 or more fixed up. He wants 129 for it. So I'm going to bring in a private lender to pay off his HELOC on the property. And then we're going to do like a step rate on his payments. And then I'm going to, maybe clean it up a little bit, put in some new appliances and sell it to a tenant or a buyer and make their payment about what rent would be in that area. So they can be an owner.
So that's a great deal for them, right? They get to have home ownership, but really just pay a rent market price per month.
Exactly. Yeah. And my owner actually, he's a really nice guy, and he's had this tenant in there for years paying $800, and the market rent's probably $1,400.
Yeah.
And so now his tenant is looking around because he was supposed to move out yesterday. I still have to talk to Jerry today, but he's realizing that he can't rent anything for $800. So I think he's in panic mode right now. But the owner's just he's done. He wants to sell. So hopefully this will work out.
So we've mentioned the step rate a couple of times. So give the audience an idea of what that specifically means, so they can kind of put a number to that.
Okay. Well, in this particular case, the note to the seller is going to be $89,000, and I think we're going to do payments at 1% for about 4 or 5 years, and then bump it up to 2% and bump up the payment a little bit for another 3, 4, or 5 years, and then go to, I think, 4 and then 6. He wanted 4% over the whole life of the loan. So basically, if you look at it, it kind of averages out to about that, but really the effective rate, like you're talking about, is going to be considerably lower.
Less than 2%.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's funny is these sellers, I've figured this out along the way, right? These sellers, say, yeah, I'll owner finance you, but I want a certain interest rate. And then you're like, well, I couldn't pay you that rate to start with, but maybe I could even pay you more of an interest rate later.
Right.
You're going to 6%, but understand by the time you're at 6%, that 6% is on about 25% of the principal that you originally financed.
Right. And then my buyer, if I put a, balloon on it at 10 years or something, that's going to be paid off anyway. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good math trick, and it's very effective. And there's lots of burnout landlords with this guy's story, and it's a duplicatable model. And so when you close this out, how much money do you look to make up front, and how much money over time?
Well, I figured if I sell it for 150, 160, I'll probably get, I don't know, 20, 25 grand down. So
yeah,
a little chunk of money there. And then I think it's about 360 something a month. And then probably another 15 grand at the end when it gets paid off, if I put a balloon at 10 or 12 years.
So instead of just making a flip of 25,000, you literally make 25,000 from selling the house on a wrap note.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you've structured it, you've gotten into it without having to put money down, right? Use creative financing strategies. And then you get $350 a month, which is kind of low, but what's wrong with making that forever? And as you said, if you put a balloon on it,
that'd be great.
Or earn that income for 15 years. And then if you put a balloon on it, then your payoff to the underlying is less than what you're getting paid off. That's why you make a kicker at the end, right?
Right. Yep.
Pretty good math there. So
yeah,
that's a great story. And the landlord situation, whether his biggest motivation up front was the tax strategy or not, he still gets the benefit of this tax strategy.
Yeah, that's true.
He's just so burnt out and owning the rental, he doesn't care. But the truth of the matter is, he would have to pay a lot in capital gains if he sold it. If he owned it that long, he'd have to pay a lot in capital gains.
Right. Yeah, because he's depreciated it way down by now.
Yeah. Well, that's there's nothing like structuring a deal where it's a win-win. The guy gets a check every month, and he doesn't have to aggravate with the tenant because you're going to pay him. He's owner financing for you. He's just going to get a check every month with no tenants and toilets. You're going to sell it.
If he was charging $800 a month currently, and his taxes are probably $350 just right there. So
he wasn't making
doing way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's way better for him. And you're going to sell it on a wrap note. So you're not going to have tenants and toilets. You're going to be the bank.
Right.
You just use part of his money to enable you to be the bank. Right.
Yep.
And then now you get to have somebody that has home ownership because, and they're have home ownership with a payment that's no more than rent.
Yep. And that's actually what happened with my my other rental that I sold over the summer. Guy wanted to get his daughter out of the apartment, and so now they got a nice house and they're pretty happy about it.
Well, I like your part-time business. It seems like you're creating a part-time business that doesn't have the work of being a landlord and has the piece of being the bank, right?
Right. Yep. It's great.
That's awesome. Joe, come on back here. Let's talk a little bit about Jim's why.
Yeah, for sure. Jim, so, you've been with Lockheed Martin. We'll have to talk about that at Note Expo. I'd love to know what you do there because I just never knew that about you. I don't know why, but I'm an airplane guy. You know that. So why, what's your goal, right? Family, travel, what does that look like?
Oh, I love to travel. Actually, my partner Trina and I spent a month over the summer in Scandinavia, just going to all different countries, and it's kind of nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I've been at Lockheed for 25 years, and I could maybe take a little bit of a pension and my 401k and go do something else. And I like real estate, so that's where I'm going to focus.
That's what we see more and more and more with our Note School folks. We've got people that are just like you that, they were doing something else. They wanted to get in real estate, or they do something else. But they get into the kind of the bricks and mortar part of it,
right.
Wholesaling, fix and flip, and so on. And then they realized that they didn't want another job. They wanted to build a bank. And that's what we see. That's predominantly what we see is folks that just want to get in and love that part-time income. Derek that works with us says, I'll take 10 of those $350 checks a month. Yeah.
And I actually did a bunch of wholesale deals over time. And now I think, boy, if I could have got those back, I could have wrapped them and still be making money.
And the wholesaling had a hot hand. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the hedge funds were paying 110% of market value, and new people wanted to be landlords. We call them HGTV dreamers. You're right. And that's, so they were just really paying up, and all of a sudden now rates have stepped in. Rates have gone from 3% to over 7% and continuing to go up. And what we've noticed over all the years, Jim, is this. When conventional lending is that big, right? It fills that big of a bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a sliver of that is creative financing. But when conventional lending is shrinking, then around that comes creative financing. And so that's the market cycle we've entered. And so this specialty that you've now really gotten clearly very good at, and we're so glad that you have figured out a way to control the financing on a deal without the bank telling you what it is.
Right. Yep.
That's
and
a pretty
on
good,
top of that,
good trick.
The rates are 7%, but if you're an investor, they're even higher. So
yeah, that's for the best owner occupied rate and only the best customer.
Yep.
What are rates on to buy a rental property today? 8.5?
At least could be more.
Yeah. Yet you bought a property the other day with an effective interest rate of less than 2%.
Yeah.
Now that's better than 8.5. Jim.
Yeah. Much.
You could buy more. You could pay more and yet pay less. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
You pay the price. You pay less in payment than you would have paid otherwise. And all of a sudden, even if you had bought it at a pretty good discount, and that's the art of creative financing. So, Jim, great story. You guys, I'm always thrilled to hear. This is letting you make a transition in your life that's at a good time, right?
Yeah, it's a great time. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. We're so glad to have you. Thank you, Jim.
Jim, we'll see you in a couple of days, dude. Look forward to it.
See you at the ice cream stand.
There you go. Yeah, the ice cream social on Friday afternoon. That's right.
We'll look forward to seeing you then, Jim. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right,
All
Joe,
right.
I'm going to let you have it, my man.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Thanks so much for being with us today on this episode of Note School TV. We look forward to seeing many of our viewers at Note Expo. Starts in a couple of days. And like Jim said, there's an ice cream social scheduled for Wednesday, or let's see, Friday afternoon, and then there's a cocktail hour a couple hours later. So we have, it's a lot of fun. And guys, if you want to learn more about what we do at Note School, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. You can be like Jim, right? He could have flipped this house he was just talking about in Chicago, and hometown Illinois, I think was actually the name of the town, and make $25,000 one time. But he makes $20 to $25,000 today, $340 a month passive, right? Net, plus some money later, right? So money today, money over time, and money tomorrow. That's I'd call that a triple threat. So again, thanks so much for being with us today, and we'll see you guys same place, same time next Wednesday. Watch out here in about an hour for Chairman Powell's announcement, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.